Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be in Pontefract. It's my first visit, but what a great place. I will be coming back. So right now, though, I want to take you back a little bit. Come back with me to the morning of the 24th of June. Remember how you felt waking up to that result. Wasn't it momentous? The day UKIP became the most successful political party of the 21st century because we got a leave vote in the referendum. What a day. Now remember how you felt last week when 3 High Court judges threw a spanner in the works. Not so happy. We've still got work to do, haven't we? It's been 5 months since the referendum. Our borders are still open. Our fishing waters are still outside our control. Our trade agreements are still governed by Brussels. We're still sending millions of pounds to the EU every day. We still can't govern ourselves. And my worry is this court case is just the start. The Ramonas will do everything and anything they can to frustrate, delay, and if they can, prevent Brexit. And it's up to us Kippers to keep fighting them for as long as it takes. Now, perhaps I was buoyed up, I don't know, with a verbal tussle I had with Jeremy Paxman a couple of weeks ago on the telly over the child migrants who looked to me more like grown men. But after that tussle, I then found myself last week taking on the Lord Chief Justice. I do pick my targets. I suggested he shouldn't have heard that Article 50 case because he's a founder member of an organisation dedicated to, and I quote from their website, the development of European law by the European Union and the Council of Europe. Now, reading between the lines, I reckon that means Lord Thomas is 100% devoted to a single system of European law. I further reckon that's a clear conflict of interest, so he should have absented himself from that case, yeah? And when I was asked, I said, well, yeah, he made a mistake. Maybe he should be sacked for not doing so, or at the very least be called to account for himself. Well, the outrage from the London set. You'd never guess I've been a proud member of Amnesty International for the last 30 years. Despite making it clear I fully support the independence of the judiciary, but just think maybe it's time our judges became subject to a little bit more democratic oversight when they make decisions that would be rejected at the ballot box. My name was linked with a plethora of bloodthirsty international dictators from Mugabe to Mussolini. J.K. Rowling had a pop. I was dubbed a fascist by Anna Soubry. Gary Lineker called me stupid. Well, I was going to say, I reckon it's not half as stupid as missing that penalty against Brazil in '92, Gary. Out means out, and it's time we got out. So if you do me the honour of making me the next leader of UKIP, my first action will be to launch an immediate nationwide campaign to repeal the 1972 European Communities Act. Forget Article 50, it's a trap. It isn't there to allow us to leave, it's there to stop us leaving. Triggering Article 50 and starting negotiations with the EU before we've left will send the biggest legal gravy train you've ever seen hurtling down the tracks. It will give carte blanche to anyone with a grievance to sue and keep us tied up in legal knots for years and years. I think let's put our MPs on the line. Let's have a simple yes-no vote in Parliament on repealing the 1972 Act. Then they can either get on with Brexit or they can ignore the will of the people and face the consequences. So my first job as leader of this great party will be to stick to Plan A. I'll breathe down Theresa May's neck in the same way Nigel Farage breathed down David Cameron's, and we will get out of the European Union. But then what? What's next for UKIP? Well, when people ask me this, I say, look around you. The question isn't what's next, it's where do we start? So many tragedies, so many ruined lives, so many issues the Lib Lab Con just ignore, but which you and I together will tackle. I know none of us in this room would turn a blind eye to horrific sexual abuse like that suffered by hundreds of young girls in Rotherham, Birmingham, Oxford and elsewhere. Girls who were abandoned fundamentally because of political correctness. I know I know we won't be cowed in the face of a rising tide of Islamist extremism that threatens not just life and limb, but freedoms men and women have fought and died for: democracy, equality, freedom of speech. We won't stand by while our education system fails kids from less well-off homes, because our current blinkered system insists on squeezing all of them down the same inflexible path, regardless of ability. Now, I went to a comprehensive, but I know and I can see how my contemporaries benefited from grammars, so I will fight and continue to fight to get one in every town. Unlike the other parties, I know UKIP will never keep quiet about the irony of borrowing to increase our national debt for the sake of sending £1 billion a month in overseas aid money to countries often who have their own overseas aid programs anyway. You know, this Christmas there'll be 120,000 children in temporary accommodation because they haven't got permanent homes, and some of them will be living in their parents with a single room. It's wrong. We should be putting British people first. And with Armistice yesterday and Remembrance Sunday tomorrow, this weekend we will honour and remember our war dead. But we must remember our war living too. It's a scandal. 900 homeless veterans will sleep on our streets tonight, and another 8,000 have no real home to call their own. These are men and women who were prepared to fight and die for our country, and we can't even find them a roof over their heads. I tell you, I will campaign for our veterans to go to the top of our social housing lists. Not one of our brave heroes should be without a home. I'll campaign against the rising cost of fuel bills too. Another scandal that's forced 2.5 million people into fuel poverty. Tory, Lib Dem, Labour, none of them will take on the vested interests of the energy companies or challenge the huge cost of green subsidies. They're all committed to Ed Miliband's Climate Change Act, and that's another law that needs to be repealed as soon as possible. As for our NHS, well, I'm sick of the way it's been turned into an international health service and used as a political football. I'll campaign loudly against health tourism and even louder against any attempt to replace the NHS, free at the point of delivery, with an insurance-based system. And let me tell you why. When my dad died of a heart attack when I was just 6 years old, his life insurance company wouldn't pay out. I can still remember my mum in floods of tears wondering how we'd cope. No one should find they can't get vital treatment because they fall foul of the small print. You can't trust the insurance companies on this. UKIP's been vulnerable on the NHS in the past, but it won't be under my leadership. Not just because we can't afford to be if we're going to beat Labour at their own game, but because I care about the NHS with every bone in my body, and I will champion Britain's finest public service. I'll champion those in our poorest communities too. Those fed up of doing their best but getting nowhere, struggling in the face of long waits for housing, social care, a decent school place for their kids, a GP appointment. They are getting mighty fed up with Labour, these traditional Labour voters. The way the party now runs Britain, or would run Britain, Jeremy Corbyn, a man who can't bring himself to sing the national anthem. He surrounds himself with a pack of elitist North Londoners who are equally unpatriotic. Emily Thornberry, who despises the English flag. John McDonnell, who's praised the IRA. Diane Abbott, who thinks anyone who wants to control immigration is racist. The Labour Party in 2016 can be summed up in one sentence. People in big houses telling people in small houses that there's plenty of room in Britain. Imagine the good we could do in society with thousands of UKIP councillors, like John earlier, elected in traditional Labour areas who'll stand up for those Labour has left behind. Councillors who'll stand by those who feel deserted, fight their corner, clean up their streets, help them appeal against that refused school place, get that noisy neighbour to shut up, move on the drunken louts who intimidate their children, force the police to deal with the drug dealers on their estate. UKIP on my watch will campaign for all this and give councillors the tools they need to get all this done. We will be the same radical, patriotic, common sense party we've always been, just much closer to the people. We'll be radically different from both Labour and the Tories because we won't be the out-of-touch political class. We'll be the common sense trailblazers who get stuff done. Under my leadership, UKIP will be a party of the people. And that's the title of a major white paper I've been working on over the summer. At its heart, it's about people power, giving ordinary citizens more power over their lives and more power over those who would govern them. It builds on that powerful winning mantra we heard again and again in the referendum campaign, take back control. But I think we need to do more than just take back control for our own parliament. Why? Well, I don't know about you, but I have a sneaking suspicion that simply putting that lot in Westminster fully in charge again might not be the answer to all our woes. Remember the expenses scandal of 2009? The one that saw 4 MPs and 1 member of the House of Lords end up in jail? Remember the bills for wisteria trimming and moat cleaning, for duck houses and fake Tudor beams? Well, I tell you, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what's wrong with the way our Parliament and our government operates. And leaving the EU gives us the opportunity to right a few wrongs here at home too. We must start by fixing our rigged and broken political system. This means electoral reform, a proportional voting system. It means direct democracy, more referendums with binding outcomes so we, the people, have more say in legislation. It means giving us the real power to sack our members of parliament when they fail to deliver on their promises or act in ways that aren't just illegal, but immoral. It means making parliament, well, more normal. Let me explain. When my great-grandfather stood for parliament for the Labour Party at the turn of the last century, he was typical of many others who did the same. He was a miner, a working-class man who simply wanted to do right by his community. Today, somebody like him probably wouldn't get a look in. Doesn't matter whether they're Labour or Tory, today's parliamentarians seem to have the same CV. They slither from boarding school to studying politics at university, to getting a job as a special advisor or researcher at the House of Commons before becoming an MP themselves. It's a little cosy cabal, and it's been totally corrupted by self-interest. It attracts the glib, the Machiavellian, and those who like to play house of cards with the lives and futures of others. These career MPs, they're more scared of their own party whips than they are of their constituents. They'd rather have the boozy dinner with the CEO of a big corporation who might give them a seat on the board for a large fee when they leave politics than they would hold an extra surgery in their constituents. I was talking to one MP, he said he got an 18-week waiting list to see constituents. 18 weeks to get an appointment with your MP. I told him, you should be doing a few more of them then, shouldn't you? This cosy cartel needs breaking up, and UKIP's well placed to smash it apart. I also think we need to take a bit of a hammer to our burgeoning nanny state too. As a classically libertarian party, fighting for the rights and freedoms of the individual against increased state interference into our lives should be natural territory for UKIP. As a party that's long championed lower taxes, we should be appalled at just how big and bloated our government has become. Do we really need 25 government departments, each headed by a Secretary of State and at least another 4 ministers? Yep, there are 100 ministers listed on the government's website. And then there are 21 non-ministerial departments headed by expensive civil servants. Ofqual, the Food Standards Agency, the Forestry Commission, the UK Statistics Authority, the Water Services Regulation. Is that enough? Oh no. On top of this, we have another 376 other public bodies and agencies, from the Academy for Justice Commission to the Youth Justice Board for England and Wales. But we're still not done. It still gets bigger. 78 more high-profile groups, including the Government Chemist and the Office for Low Emission Vehicles. Why that can't be part of the Department of Transport is beyond me. Oh, before I forget, of course, there's the BBC, among other public organisations. And then, of course, we have local government and the devolved administrations of Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland, each with their own plethora of separate internal departments. We are being fleeced to pay for all this. Our most costly bills now are not our mortgages or our cars or our holidays. They're what we pay in direct and indirect taxes. On average, out of every £100 we earn, we fork out £64.88 for the state. We are being ripped off, and I think UKIP needs to start pointing this out. For all the talk of austerity, central government spending hasn't gone down, it's gone up, and so has borrowing to pay for it. So in my paper, I suggest giving back to MPs the power to scrutinise and veto spending by all government departments. So budgets can't simply rise unchecked, but have to be justified line by line. And the beauty of this, of course, is that then your MP would have to justify what spending they allowed or didn't to you on the doorstep. You could ask them, did you help shrink the size of the state and help me keep more of my own money, or did you vote to squander it? Did you veto that proposed pay rise for the Whitehall Mandarin, who's already on 150 grand a year, or not? What did you vote for? More money for the NHS or cheaper beer in the House of Commons bar? I can see this catching on. Let's take on the vested interests of big business too. Those multinationals who avoid paying corporation tax but will spend a fortune lobbying and schmoozing decision makers to rig the markets to their advantage. All those well-connected corporatists who suck up to Whitehall officials and government ministers to get lucrative public sector contracts. And then they exploit their already low-paid frontline workers for even greater profits. This should be bread and butter stuff for UKIP as we take on Labour in their heartlands. I particularly like to see UKIP take on the big banks. After all, it's fashionable to bash the bankers right now, isn't it? So why shouldn't we join in? The difference is we can offer real solutions and not just random protest slogans. The Labour Party has made bankers' bonuses the issue, but really the problem goes a lot deeper than that. I could talk at length about the far too cosy relationships banks have with the state, a relationship that allows them to make huge private profits, but then lets the public purse bear the cost of any of their losses. But I'll restrict myself today to saying I think it's time to champion a refresh of a bill Douglas Carswell put before the House of Commons in 2010. And it sought to end some of the excesses of banking practice and prevent any more taxpayer-funded bailouts. Two things you might not know. The moment you put your money into the bank, you cease to own it. It becomes the bank's property. Two, for every £3 you give your bank can use it to generate loans of up to £97. So for every £3, they can generate £97 of credit. Now, you don't need to be an economic genius to see this makes the margins on which banks operate very narrow, and that your money really isn't as safe in the bank as you might think it is. Douglas argued for a new banking system, which lets customers choose whether they want to cede ownership of their money to the bank or keep it for themselves, just for safekeeping. He also sought to raise the amount banks must keep in reserve from the current 3% minimum to somewhere between 15 and 30% to reduce the likelihood of an individual bank collapsing and prevent that bank taking others down with it. Now, to me, this is common sense. Sound money is at the root of a free and fair economy, and our party needs to champion it. There's a lot more on this and much else in my paper, which I do hope you read. You can download it at www.ukippolicyforum.com. So do that and then sit down with a very large cup of tea. At 87 pages, I can tell I've not really held back on my opinions. But it is intended to act as a basis for our next round of policy development and build on our 2015 general election manifesto. In a nutshell, it lays out the failings of our political system, our government, and our economy, and how we might campaign to give citizens a better deal. And after all, that surely is why we are in politics. I hope whoever becomes the next leader of UKIP will run with it, because I think the time is right for the old political order to give way to a state that is vastly smaller, significantly cheaper, much more democratic, and far less nannying. I believe UKIP can be the party that sets itself apart from the rest by championing these ideas. To fulfil all this, though, we must get more MPs into Westminster. And I suggest that starts with one here in Pontefract. The second place in Yorkshire, right? Biggest second place, only second place in Yorkshire. And one of the biggest Leave votes in the country. And huge congratulations to everyone who played a part in that. Yep, we in UKIP do a really good job of shaking up the establishment, even when we're on the outside. But to deliver real change, we need to get to the heart of that establishment and change it from within by crowding out those green benches with UKIP MPs. I think I've got the skills to lead UKIP forward to that position of strength. My 30 years running and setting up my own businesses have given me the essential life and leadership experience. The General Election Manifesto I produced last year proves my ability to produce fully costed, powerful policies the other parties can't and won't critique. They'd prefer to go on and steal them. I can't think of a national radio or TV programme I've not appeared on, so my media skills will help us take the press with us rather than keep them always pitted against us. And I'm proud of my knack for getting on with anyone from whatever walk of life, and I know I can broaden our appeal beyond our core vote. And this is critical, because really and truly, although it will be us UKIP members in here voting in the leadership campaign, this really isn't about any one of us in this building. It's about all the people outside, out there, and how best we can reach them. I think that's me. With your support, I know we can get this party back on track and transform UKIP into an organised, strategic, winning machine that is united. Because you see, I don't think anything builds unity faster than success. And under my leadership, we will be successful. We'll be a party led by a woman with integrity. I promise I'll always stand up for what I believe in and what this party believes in, even at my own personal cost. I'll be no 18-day wonder, that I can promise you. In me, I think you already know you'll have a capable, confident leader who can prove she can take the knocks and still bounce back. Nigel Farage has left us a great and noble legacy. Now it's time to push on into a new era, one in which we do take our country back, and then we make it work. UKIP will put the great back into Great Britain.